2, 3. Yeah. And everyone, good evening, one and all.
Bless.
Good evening, listeners. Welcome to, I want to say Waterhouse Vibes, but someone is saying I should call it Firehouse Vibes, But it's the same group again. Every Sunday we gather and we talk, and sometimes we try to pick sense out of nonsense, and we put together something that you enjoy. This Sunday, this Sunday, we have a focus on the ganja industry in Jamaica. And what we have tried to do is assemble some individuals from that industry to come and tell us what's happening. Okay. My name is Michael Nita. I am the host here alongside Maxine Stowe, who's she's from the ganja industry, entertainment,
Many
music
hats.
executive, involved in Jamaican creative arts for some time. We have Patrick McCarthy, a brother from Waterhouse, who we call him our mentor because this brother is a man who initiated a number of organizations, Waterhouse, from which we continue to reap the benefits of that work. Lass, Lass is a very good comrade of mine out at Greenwich Farm. We've been working together, stirring up trouble in Kingston and St. Andrew for a while. Now he's in Toronto. And of course, our resident intelligence officer, Brother Herb Nelson, when it comes to security and what have you. Herb's a man know what's going on. They can't hide nothing from him. He have a way to dig deep. So with that, we're gonna 3 individuals I expect to join us. Errol Horton, Lindell Freighter, and Vicky Ansop. All 3 individuals are involved in the industry. And Mr. Horton, somehow we're having a problem getting him, patching him, but we're still trying. So we're gonna start off with an overview. Sister Maxine gonna give us an overview as to what the industry is. I see now we have Vicky coming on board. Vicky. Hi, Sister Vicky. Sister Vicky. Not hearing her. Brother Arton,
Blessed.
can you unmute to
He's
join
he's
us?
Yes, I have unmuted. Check
Eh,
one.
Love, love my brother. So we
Hello,
have
hello.
Brother Arton with us now. Yeah. Sister Vicky, can you unmute? Yes.
Hello, good evening. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yes, hearing you loud and clear.
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes. Yes.
well, they just got me off the hook, Vicky and
You
Errol. I
join the
thought I had to be.
conversation, Brother
No, I,
Arton
I
and Sister
defer now
Vicky.
to
When we
Errol.
and what happened?
Now I say I'll defer to Errol to give an overview of the ganja industry.
Somehow I'm lost.
Hello?
Train of thoughts and what have you. Oh, let me see if I can pick up
Yeah, yes.
back
Am I being heard? Am I being heard, please?
When both of you join, Brother Errol, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Yes. Sister Vicky, can you hear me?
You're muted.
Yes,
Okay.
I
I was
am.
muted.
Yes, I am.
Oh, she's okay now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. When both of you join, we were at the point where Sister Maxine was going to give us an overview of the ganja industry in Jamaica. A brief overview. After which we'll have some questions and we open up the bridge and sister.
Mikey,
You clear on that?
I think you're not hearing Maxine.
Yes.
She was saying since Errol joined, I mean, she would prefer Errol give an overview of the industry.
Yes, because I was really going to do it because Errol was having difficulty, but I'd rather Errol set the framework.
Are you okay with that, Errol? It's frozen.
Brother Errol?
Sure. Yeah, but I must warn you,
Yes,
I'm
you heard that.
I'm in St.
Okay.
Mary Bush and outside, if you can see, and I'm trying my best. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Yes.
We
Yes.
understand. We understand.
Hello? Hello?
One thing
Yeah,
you
we're
can't,
hearing you.
your
We
camera,
are
brother.
hearing
I must warn,
Your
but
camera,
I'm
we're
in
not
way in
seeing your
St. Mary in
full.
the bush and I'm having
Okay.
tremendous difficulty with my signal.
Okay.
So it's intermittent as you can see, but I'll be happy to go as long as it holds. Okay?
Yes. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. The ganja industry as it is in Jamaica right now is in shambles. And I'm a man who is brutally frank, and I will always be that way through the program. All right. You're asking about joining.
Can we see more of your face, Errol? Your camera kind of.
You see what is happening is the minute I go to camera, the signal weakens and it will
Errol, can we see
eventually
more of
go
your
away.
face?
So if you can bear the blank, I don't know if you can put something up or something, but I'll try to be on camera. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is that better?
Yes.
Continue.
Hello?
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. We can do the audio, and if that is, if audio works, we'll work with audio.
You mess with it now, it disappear.
Together. Well, I'll also state that
Yeah.
Vicky
It's
is
in St.
very.
Mary. St. Mary.
All right.
Look, here's a
Let me
puzzle,
try and
Maxine.
assist the process here. Good afternoon, and my apologies for being late. The ganja industry, as Errol was saying, is kind of falling into shambles. What happened is that we leapfrog from a illicit space, quote unquote, into a medicinal framework, which is not something that is culturally aligned to us, so to speak. We have used cannabis in a cultural space, in a medicinal space, but not your pharmaceutical type of setup that is happening globally as it relates to culturally. In the last presentation of our Minister of Industry at Canex over the weekend, he highlighted that there were 160 licenses across the sector, being in both dispensaries, cultivators, transport, and the like. However, one of the concerns of the association, the Ganja Growers Association, and other partners and stakeholders in the industry is how many of those licenses are still active, because persons have been granted license, but they find it hard to survive in a space that is highly regulated in terms of the fees, which are very high, and in terms of the strictures. So you have to have security cameras. You must have a track and trace system, so tagging of plants, and you also must sell these plants into a quote unquote dispensary or medicinal frame. Now, not that we are against regulation, but the regulation is of such, being interim from 2015, does not allow and accept for how we would have culturally used the plant over the years. So as recent as August, Rastafari again was granted sacramental, and this sacramental promulgation came in August 2023 that recognized only certain spaces. 57 of them, I think the number is. Am I correct, Maxine? I think it's 57.
It's 57, but again, it's a blend. Some of them
Right.
are cultivating, some are
Spaces and
restaurant.
individuals and so on, which is something that we are not used to. But then I found it ironic because our ministers hold up the international law to say, you know, we can't do certain operate under certain regulation because we have this international law and treaty that we signed to. However, on one hand, we are giving sacramental rights, which is our cultural right. So if we are doing that, we need to be clear across the board as to how we regulate. So a lot is unfolding, not in a way that is structured, but also in a way that is more of a knee-jerk reaction to the community. And I dare say too, not necessarily with the contribution, the serious contribution of members of the community. So to Errol's point, to say it's in a shamble, it kind of is all over the place because we have that on one hand happening, then we have imported products that are reaching into the hands of children, and there are supposed to be regulations that govern that and cover that, but they are not there. And so where you have locally, they tell the local industry players that edibles, for example, is not allowed, and we don't allow for edibles. Yet still, you have edibles being imported from California, say, stating Delta 8 on the packages, reaching the hands of primary school students, without really engaging the stakeholders in the industry for proper regulation. So that's where we are in the industry. It is happening a number of, and I must say that this is not just only in Jamaica, because you have Bahamas and a number of other Caribbean islands looking to follow suit, I dare say, the Jamaican model that is not necessarily a fit model based on how we have evolved in this industry.
A question, Vicky. You mentioned about fees. To become what are the requirements to become registered in the industry in terms of the fees, in terms of do you need land, do you need a specific requirement in terms of space, all of that
Yes,
kind of stuff?
you do. First of all, in order to really, firstly, before you can even, let's say, for example, a cultivator license, before you can get a cultivator license, you have to show that you have access to the land. And if it's a land that you own, you need to take your title, take the relevant documents to show that you have the right to grow on this property. If it's a land that is leased or rented, you have to say to the owners of the property, I'm going to grow cannabis on this property. And they themselves will now have to give you permission to allow for growing of cannabis on the property. It is the same thing with a dispensary. If you have to show that you are the rightful owner of the location, the property that you're going to open a dispensary on. If not, you'll have to show that you have the permission to do demonstrated that there are other things that you now need to put in place. So you pay a fee first. There is a deposit fee that you have to pay, a registration fee, so to speak.
What is that?
Pardon?
How much is that? The fees? When you talk
I'd have
about
to
the
look
fees,
back.
can you give us a?
I can give you in a few. I do have the fees. I'll have to look. They are all in US dollars. I must say to you as well.
What?
So that too brings with it its own
In Jamaica?
yeah, that brings with it its own issues, because as I said, the I think the registration fee, or the application fee rather, for the correct word, is in 300, I think it's 300 US dollars, 300 US dollars, the application fee. So I have the fees now. So so for a tier one cultivator, which is the smallest cultivator, tier one is US $2,000. A tier two cultivator, which is I think above 1 acre, is 2,500, and tier three, which is 5 acres and above, 3,000 US dollars. And
Per
that's
year.
That's
What?
per year? That's per year?
Yes, that's per year. But there has been negotiation with the government to change the licensing structure from a yearly to more of a probably 2 years, every 2 years or 3 years. We are still in conversation with them with that. As I said, there is an application fee. The application fee for individuals is 300 US dollars per application. So let's just say, for example, you want to apply for a cultivator's license and you want to apply for a dispensary's license. You are paying 300 US dollars for the cultivation license, and you have to pay another 300 US dollars for the dispensary license. So it's per application. If it's a company, business, or cooperative, it is $500 the application fee. And the application fees are non-refundable fees. Right. So
whether you're successful or not,
or
you will
not,
get,
right? That's
you will get your
the
money.
application for doing the activities, for going in there, doing whatever documentation, because there are investigations that have to happen and the processing. So that's the basic application fee.
A question, Vicky.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, but the fact that you're in Jamaica, why are the fees quoted in
US dollars? All right, let us step back in history. Part of this, and I a lot of persons give a flack for this, but part of this, I remember when we started the conversation, and I would blame us somewhat. And when I say us, I mean participants in the industry. When we just started the conversation back then, everybody thought that this was green gold and we're going to make a lot of money, and the industry should be priced in US dollars and pegged in US dollars because it's US dollars industry. The smuggling was the height of whatever. The idea of it at the time was the illegal industry was in US dollars. Even some of our representatives who were at the negotiating table and part of the association sat at the table and agreed to the fees being done in US dollars. And so that's why I said we have to take some amount of responsibility for it, because there were persons, even amongst ourselves, who were at the table who it wasn't until hindsight is 2020 that they say, oh hell, this industry isn't going out the way we wanted it to go. We shouldn't have pegged it to the US dollars. So to answer your question, it started out with the expectation that this was going to be a booming business, and if we pegged it to the US dollars, investors were also coming into the space at the time as well. So you had several persons coming from Canada and the US. I could name a few companies, which I won't do because I'll get in trouble. But they came on board. So persons, that was the thinking behind it. However,
I get that. I pretty much knew that answer before you asked the question.
Yeah.
But I really asked the question to say this, that one of the things I clearly detect, and it's no surprise, even when Errol was here and he started out by saying it is in shambles. That's really no surprise.
Yeah.
The problem is that historically we ourselves have a problem in terms of how we deal, right? And when I say we, I mean we as Jamaicans, right? Because we have this tendency to walk behind the Bakra Masa, right? Which has always been our downfall, right? That's why we are in the state we're in. The problem is that, as I understand it, setting up the industry in Jamaica, it is patterning again what's being done in the US, right? So everything is walking behind the master, right? Walking behind the very ones who put us in the state that we are in, right? If we look at the product historically, right, coming in our Jamaican culture and all of that, it is one where it existed before all of this alabaloo about smuggling and all of that started taking place. What happens is the American in particular came down to Jamaica and they decided to monetize it and start the smuggling process. At that time, it wasn't even looked at as smuggling. It was looked at as a normal activity, right? More looked at like export, right? Unregulated export, non-traditional export, right? So it was kind of semi-legitimate. It wasn't until Jamaicans started to really get involved in the smuggling process that it became criminalized, right? So all these laws have been built up. I would rather we look at that and dissect that, right? And look at how it has brought us to where we are today, because that's really where the crux of the problem is, right? It's because the whole control of the industry, right, is being, we are trying to decentralize it, to take it out of the hands of the Bakra Masa, right, and take it down to the ordinary growers, getting some action out of it, right, that can profit them. And this has always been where the problem is, because even with the smuggling, it wasn't a problem until Jamaicans themselves started to get involved in it.
What I would love to find out is, I mean, we know that before legalization, I mean, ganja production was like a social safety net for a big cross section of the Jamaican population, who had to get into to ganja cultivation because the economy was not providing for them the kind of social support and the kind of economic support, right, to send their kids to school or just to survive. When you told me that there were 160 participants locally in this association, I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
Those are the licensees. Those are licensees.
The licensees. I'm trying to figure out in my head, okay, 160 licensees. What of those traditional cultivators? Are they among this 160, or are they pretty much on their own in the bushes somewhere in Jamaica?
If I could step in a little bit to just say, I just read an article by Kevin Edbud. He's a researcher at a, I don't remember the university.
It's Canada. He's in Canada.
Canada, okay.
Yeah.
He quoted, which is necessary for us to have a framework of the traditional industry that they call illicit, right? And the figures that make up that industry were anywhere between 9 billion Jamaican to 11 billion And it didn't at that time, within his analysis, where he got from seizures, and he has a framework that he extracted, because in this whole development of the industry, we have not been comfortable or willing to speak clearly what the existing industry is how it's quantified. It's huge. So even when they use words like illicit going into legal, you don't get the sense of understanding how many $billion are at play. But
Absolutely.
because of the regulations coming from the United Nations, it stipulated that no one that was in the Jamaican Ganja, none of that billions of dollars that was made up the industry, could be reinvested in the new industry. There was a firewall put up, right? And so the way around it in this effort was to bring in foreign capital. This was the method, the thinking, to bring in foreign capital. That it wasn't just foreign capital also, because the foreign capital would have been linked to technology and other knowledge that was needed in Jamaica to, in their head, make us invest more
Compliant.
in not just compliant, but for the medicinal market, medicinal pharmaceutical framework that they were imposing, that it required a lot of understanding. For example, we can't just grow it anywhere, because the metals that are in our soil, or the chemicals, they wouldn't be appropriate for the standardized export of the ganja, to whatever they had framed out as would be the business, development for the industry. So realistically, we were handcuffed going into the industry, because we are also identified as a transshipment country, high up on the list of the UN.
The ICD,
Right,
the International
right.
Narcotic Board.
And this is
The
not for ganja. I mean, we are exporting ganja, but the focus was on our transshipment of cocaine.
Yeah.
And the different issues that have come with that, like the trade for guns, and a lot of madness. Because in
Just to
fact,
add,
yeah, go ahead, Vicky.
yeah, just to add to what Sister Maxine just said, because she made a very important point. And a question you asked, Sir Crawford, about it being legal. And I caution persons to use, we are not legal. So that's the first thing. We are decrim. It's decriminalized. So it's a different ballgame from being legal, which brings in the point that Sister Maxine raised, that persons who were in that illicit space before couldn't just come out now and say they want to be in the industry, because they had, especially
criminal records.
Exactly. They had this record of cultivating, and if the only record that we expunged here was if you were held for a small spliff or joint, then you could get that expunged. But if you were viewed as being in the industry
As a grower,
you were not allowed, because you were seen as being part of the quote unquote drugs trade. So that's a major point.
Yeah,
And
if I can just add to the point there as well, right? From the American perspective, because again, like I said, it's a situation of walking behind the very ones who would persecute us and who have always been, right, the main benefactors of it, right? Is when you look at in the United States, it's a similar situation. State to state, there has been decriminalization and the setting up of dispensaries and so on. But federally, it has not been legalized, right? Even though they take taxes from it, they'll always take taxes. But this is what I'm talking about. It has become more about the money. It has always been about the money because that's where the criminalization part came in. Because it existed in the culture before, right? All of this alabaloo. But it's really a matter of who benefits, who is really supposed to benefit. And that's why it comes back to in terms of what the the quotes in US dollars and all of this is all part of the restriction to keep out who they want to keep out as well. They're not gonna say that, but that's what it is.
But I also want to the reason why I'm framing it in the $1 billion industry, it's bigger than the cigarette industry of Carreras. You understand? Is that the growers are the low-hanging earners of this industry.
The least.
As you said in the as you were explaining how the smuggling started in Jamaica with the hippies in the 70s, that they not just came to Jamaica, they went to every strong ganja country in the world, whether it was Mexico, Thailand, you understand? South Africa, Colombia. You had a set of persons out of the United States that went into every of these areas and engaged in the marijuana ganja industry. When they left, or when they came in and transformed the local industry, the shipping, as you were talking about, was taken over now by the merchant class, the people who had access to the boats, the planes, the containers, and the wharves. So the growers are still existing in the illicit industry in a framework that there's a hierarchy. You understand what I'm saying? So when we're discussing the potential for investment in the local industry, it would be coming from a hierarchy. You understand? That controls the export market and the funds, because I think the professor.
Here's the thing, Maxine, to that point we just made, right? The problem is that one is not supposed to have anything to do with the other, because now we're talking about setting up something that is legitimate, right? It might not be legalized, but it's going to operate with some legitimacy, and it's not supposed to be coming out of what existed before. But at the same time, right, they have already started to set up the structure, right, where it's still going to maintain that old hierarchy, right? The old oligarchy who was the real ones making the money, right? And giving pennies to the farmers, right? And they're duping us into thinking that this whole reformation, right, or this whole legitimization of the trade, right, is going to be one which is going to benefit you. And at the same time, it's taxing you before you even start. Because that's basically what it amounts to.
Yes, but we have to, like you said, no oligarch, our plantation economy, because every other agricultural product, banana, sugar cane, anything, comes through the same system where.
But that's different. That was
no. I'm just
colonization.
No, I'm just saying it. The industries, for example, ganja is really an agricultural product. Because it's illegal, the agricultural industry, as to how you would invest in a product, if you're bringing, pineapple or whatever into the stream of the economy, there is a framework for investment, setting up your board, setting up your infrastructure of how you're going to deal with exporting ginger from a local to an export crop, right? What happened with the ganja? The agricultural department, no department could touch it because it's an illegal substance. And so the normal investment that could even have come in to assist the intention of the growers, it isn't there. Everything became dependent on getting an international partner that was also linked, because first it was the first set of investors came out of California as the largest state that was involved in the ganja industry in the United States. Then that was immediately taken over by Canada. Once Canada created a framework as a country to deal with the cannabis industry, then they became the dominant investors, not only because of how we were setting up in Jamaica, but then supposedly the Canadian market was going to be our lead market to supply, right? So I'm just saying that in discussing, like you have different silos, we're dealing with the local market and why, as a multi-billion-dollar market, we couldn't transition, and we have to bring in another market. They try to say, oh, we are just competing with small farmers and getting traditional farmers and so on in there. What we are competing with is the billions of dollars in the local industry. How do you get that, normalized?
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't put
Yeah.
the cart before the horse. You can't put the cart before the horse, because what happens is, if you're getting started brand new, right? You can't be looking at profit when you're nowhere there. Of course.
You're already profitable.
No. What I'm saying is, right? Of course you got to invest, and based on your investment, right? Your production cost and all of that, right? That's where your profit is gonna generate from, right? In terms of when you get to market, what returns you get on your goods and so on. But what I'm looking at is where everything that is being done from the standpoint of the oligarchy, right? It's being done from the standpoint of those on top, the very ones who have always.
You're getting a buzz from somebody's mic.
The very ones who have always held back.
But one of the things that Maxi mentioned that is key to remember, the market. Who are we? Because who are we aiming are trying towards? One of the things that did not happen and how we started out was us looking at an export market. So even as Maxine said, there's no conversation about a local market, so to speak. And so what you have on the ground here now is that you have two markets. You have the licensees, but you also do have the guys that still have their corner shop. So that is still an active gray area.
But you still don't have a legal export market either.
No, but
you really don't have a legal export
market. The government wants to go for a legal export market. However, that is going to be hard when internationally you cannot export across.
Exactly.
There is it is as clear as day. There is no export from Jamaica to anywhere else.
Exactly.
What happened the other day with the glut on the Canadian market and us allowing them to use us as a dumping ground, I like to say, for their market, would not ever happen in the reverse if we ever had a glut here and to send to Canada. It's not going to happen. They are going to find every reason, just as Sister Maxine said, to tell you that the soil type, when they tested, there was so much chemical, there's so much mold and whatever. So, and their FDA regulations or regulations do not allow
It's a load
for
of
this
crap.
kind of crap. So that conversation about what it started out like that in the initial stage of, and that was why the ganja industry was placed where it is placed under the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, because it is seen as a product to export as an industry and commerce. And as Sister Maxine says, there's no conversation about it in agriculture. You, even as a ganja farmer, you cannot get concession. There is no, you're not even, rather doesn't even recognize you as, unless you grow another crop alongside it.
But
So-
here's the thing, Vicky and Maxine, right? I can use another example. I can use another example for bear out the point too. They did a similar thing with the Jamaican mango years ago. They did a similar thing, right? With the ackee years ago. Right? It's nothing new. None of what you see they do is anything new. And the government is complicit with it because the government is only concerned about what they can make, right? To put in their own pockets. This is not in the interest of farmers and farmers farming something and profiteering from it. It is not about that. That's what it should be about.
So,
well,
Right? They did the same thing with the mango. They did the same thing with the ackee. Right? For many years, ackee couldn't even come in the US. Right? And now, primarily, it comes in through the big exporters like the Grace Kennedys and so on and so on. That's how they finally had it worked out. Right? Now, the fact of the matter is that if you're, like I said, if you're going to start an industry, it's gonna start with the local market, right? It has to start with the local market because that's the limitation right now. It is not legalized across the board where you can have normalized trade.
Just a point. I don't know it. Well, I'm sorry to be late. My computer require all kind of security things before I can come online. But for me, who is outside of the industry, how I'm understanding what is being said and to relate it to Jamaica's development is that in every industry, regardless of which industry, bauxite, banana, sugar, you want to get as much of the value added process. So if you are only confined to growing, that's the revenue you can expect, a revenue as a grower. So whether you're selling it locally or you're selling it overseas as a grower, it's quite different from if you manufacture it or modify it to become a medicine. And therefore you're exporting it to Canada or the United States to people who are buying medicine from you. You're going to get much more value in the local market if the more you go up the value added. It's just like bauxite. When we started out with bauxite, we were only exporting raw dirt. Here we're not even able to export the dirt, the plant, because of the legal constraints around who can grow it and so on. But technically, in the interest of looking at the future of the country, it is two concerns that seem to come out to me. One is the things that are preventing us from going overseas with this product. And secondly, the things that prevent us from getting more value added to the grassroots. So a man who has just what is Vicky, Vicky I think is the name, yes. And what I understood Maxine to be saying is really this point. If I was growing ganja in Westmoreland on bare land. And now they are looking to bring it under some kind of regulation and control. What they're doing is banning me as a grower from transforming the land that I had before into a means of marketing my product legally. I'm banned from doing that. Secondly, I am being opposed by bigger business, whether in the United States, well, probably in the United States, but certainly in Jamaica, from getting more value added out of it, where I cannot or is prevented from turning it into medicine. Because the more Jamaica turns it, just like the coffee, same damn thing.
Yes.
Right? The more I send away the raw thing, I get some money, yes. I get some dregs from the table. But if I can manufacture it, modify it, and send it to a market that is buying it in its completed form, the value to me and to the country is exponentially greater. And that's how I'm listening to this conversation. Now, somebody said something about the UN. I don't know if you meant US.
No, it's actually the United Nations.
Yeah, what is that? That it's a thing that they have about.
So the International Narcotic Board governs the what they call drug crops, of which cannabis or ganja is viewed as a drug crop. And so the UN conventions, 1961, 71, and 1988, only allows those crops to be exported for under certain requirements. One of those requirements is that of medicinal. And where ganja is concerned, it is only in recent years medicinal value.
We lost you there. Sorry, we lost you there for a minute.
We lost you for a minute.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that the 1961, 71 convention and 88 only allows ganja to be exported under certain strictures, certain requirements, such as medicinal. And it is only in recent years that they have stated that ganja has any medicinal value. So because of that, the plant is on a schedule. And so the schedule of the plant says that cannabis can only be used, and it is very specific in its requirement for medicinal purposes, and it tells you. So it's not just the US, it is, and they have used that.
But here's the thing, Vicky. Here's the thing about that, what you just said. It is their nice way of saying, this is how we're gonna regulate you, right? They don't need to tell you, they don't need to tell us, right, that it had medicinal value. We knew that before.
Yeah,
they're not telling us anything new, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't recognized as such before.
Precisely, and that's what I'm saying to you. That's their nice way of telling you, this is how we're gonna regulate you.
Yeah.
They've been regulating. They have been regulating. Remember,
we know that
cannabis was medicinal. Cannabis
before.
We know that. But here's another thing. Here's another thing to point out, right? And you can probably recall this between Maxine and Vicky. You remember years ago? This was back in the 70s, I think. Right? There's this doctor who came up with the treatment for glaucoma.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
And using ganja.
Man,
yes.
the West
Right?
and
Where do you think they got that ganja from? That ganja never came from regular growers.
Yeah.
That ganja came from, well, it never come from regular growers.
It did.
No. It came from their selected growers.
What you mean?
No, man, those were ganjas that were
What I'm
understood
saying
that
is,
it
what I'm
came
saying
from
is that
ganja
drug
that
that
was confiscated.
confiscated ganja they used.
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It never come
Yeah.
from people growing it and selling it to them. Them confiscate it and use that to do whatever they're doing.
Research, yeah.
Right? They never use that, right, to benefit the people who grow it. It's the same
No,
thing.
because the
same
people
thing.
who grow, no, but what I'm saying, when they made the cannasol, or when they did the research and got the medicinal, because something similar was happening in Israel, right? Where Israeli scientists from the same period, as I got to understand, because Israel within their religious concept, cannabis has a, openness, almost cultural, like ourselves, but not, equally
Yeah.
in equal standing, especially like how they're bombing Hamas. Now I have to be
Can,
very
can,
careful.
can I
But
ask?
what I was just trying to make the point was that the international UN laws that Vicky spoke about governs the world, and it governs it from the same colonial
Perspective.
industrial framework, right? So
Exactly.
even us discussing the ganja industry, what is disheartening is that we are not investigating the it's export market or this or that. We're not studying that we have to tiptoe through the tulips if we want to get to the other side. And Jamaica, because they're so invested in the transshipment economies, we have to look at these economies, right? It's not like Uruguay and some other places who just said, listen, as a country, if you notice, no Jamaican prime minister has stepped forward, like how Trudeau or, the prime minister of Uruguay stepped up as a nation and say, I'm taking control of this and I'm going to monetize it on behalf of my people and take the best out of it. You
And they're not
understand?
gonna do that.
I
Let me,
understand.
let me,
So these are the
let,
discussions that we must have as people who are maybe have a right, you understand, to exercise this in law. Maybe the government can't, but maybe the people can, or maybe a
let,
section of the people which is what I think they're tinkering now with the Rastafari. You understand what I'm saying? In that
let
Sir
me
group.
ask,
Horton,
let me
Sir
ask
Horton,
this question.
comment on something that Sir Horton said about the value added. One of the things that we have going on in the industry here is that a number of persons locally have made value added products from the plant. However, here's the catch up for that now, is that you have to have these products passed by our Ministry of Health, and they have set up a cannabis unit in the Ministry of Health. And the rules, so this comes back to what you're saying, Patrick, the rules that you have for those products now to get them and to even to export them to any market as value added is so stringent, because you have to pass this SBA, this quality, and so on. One company in Jamaica, for example, one cannabis company, they tried to do a product for cancer treatment and pain. And when the person tried to get access to the market, they couldn't. You know what they had to do? They had to ask someone in another country to certify the product under their product in that country. It's the same product made here, same Jamaican product from our plant, but they had to circumvent the process and they label the product and say that the testing was done in this other country for the product even to be recognized as being something that we could look at. So it is not lack of wanting to add value, because products are there, persons are trying to add value. The other thing, we have also blocked any edibles coming from the plant. So that is not even, and that is why I'm so upset about us importing sweets and edibles from California or wherever, getting in our hands of our children, because we here in the industry, edibles is not a part of it, and the Ministry of Health and everybody has told us that there is no space for edibles because you can't tell the measurement, you can't do proper labeling and access and all that. Yet still these products are coming into our shores and finding their hands in the hands of our children.
And let me tell you, our industry, our economy is an import substitution economy. And when the other day someone told me that the cigarettes are now fully imported, potentially which I wanted to clarify in my head, because I said, I remember, Carreras or whoever having a factory in Jamaica. And then they said, no, now that is no longer. This industry is now coming from outside, prepackaged and imported for sale. So one of the things that, even as an activist on the indigenous rights and cultural rights and so forth, is I saw where potentially the Jamaican economy would rather look at Jamaica as a consuming market of ganja and map it out in a way where they are content to import, and then that same merchant import substitution class would then take control of the industry, and they would literally kill out the traditional ganja industry, which they themselves don't care for. You understand? And in fact, at one point when they were bringing in the hemp, that was potentially going to kill out the industry, they were willing to forego the traditional, ganja industry for the hemp.
It's only me, I'm not seeing anybody.
I'm not seeing anyone either.
The same thing here.
Oh.
But I'm hearing you, so I'm...
Yes, go ahead. No, I know.
But you understand. So
yes.
Even this whole thing about the import and people being alarmed, they don't recognize that is actually potentially what the powers that be are, would want to have happen.
But here's the thing, Maxine. All the way you just say is nothing new, and it applies across the board to everything. Not just ganja and all of that. I mean, right as I sit here, there's a number of products I can think of, right, with Jamaica right now. I see somebody posted on social media just this past week, right, about coconut products, right, like coconut milk and all of that, being marketed in Jamaica from Thailand and all of these places, right? Now, this is marketed through the very same company, Grace Kennedy, right, who at one stage America would not allow them for import coconut water from Jamaica, right? Because as far as them was concerned, it was not product that was tested and approved for export, right, to the US. I remember when this whole thing got started. Right? It got started from way back in the 70s. It's not just these products. You're seeing it now because we're looking at the ganja situation. But it's a number of products went through all of that.
Right?
It is nothing new.
We're agreeing with you.
We're agreeing with you.
Yeah.
As well, but we're here now discussing a new industry that they are trying to
they're doing the same thing with it.
That they're doing that. I mean, that is the basis of our reasoning to identify as people are, have their expectations and, investing their money and thinking that this is, a problem that we're going to solve. What we're discussing
and
here.
What to Maxine is that this industry is very much linked to our culture. So it's not just the product itself, but the culture And so you just mentioned, somebody mentioned Thailand. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm seeing Thailand taking ganja and have an entire village that plays Bob Marley, has Rasta colors up with ganja stores selling ganja, purportedly under the cultural appropriation in terms of the Jamaican culture that is being sold there. And we are sitting here not realizing our value being taken from us. So it's for
exactly.
me, it's not just the product, but the cultural attachment that is going elsewhere. Slap up a leaf and a ganja leaf and black, green and gold, or red, green and gold, and say Jamaica, and it is sold already scrap.
Well, I agree. Well, when I say I agree, when this thing was coming on, from the Rastafari perspective, the first from 2013, we wrote to the U.S. High Commissioner to state that our intellectual property, the level of which it is being used in California, it would preclude us having any competitive advantage shipping our products out of Jamaica. So we felt that we needed, as part of this ganja industry, a trade on the level of trade. You understand? To understand, all right, before we even start, we are already competed with in the top markets of the world because of our music, because of what our music has done. You understand? So where are those variables? We're here talking about, as Vicky said, growing and cultivating and the non-exportability of the actual plant, when the cultural brand value is already a global platform. You understand that you would need to trade. And when we brought this to the government, that is one of the areas within the industry that we don't even reach tier 1, is our intellectual property rights, which I argue, even for the Rastafari, when they're telling you about sacramental space and all of that. I'm saying, where is the protection of the intellectual property? And when I say protection, you look at Marley Natural. The Bob Marley brand of ganja was first established in California, bought out by one of the top, ganja companies. And they took everything, the highest of our brand value. Now Marley Natural is opened in Jamaica at the Bob Marley Museum.
But
I dare say that it is the products from California that would be there.
I can mention something to you too about that, which would be even shocking to people, is that before it was even legitimized for marketing in California, it was being sold.
What do you mean? What sold where?
Before it was legitimized in California, in the state of California, right? For market, it was being sold. The same Marley brand and all of that. I'm saying that, when you hear about it hitting the market and all of that, it was already on the market.
Yeah, well, I mean, that might be a sub story to the reality, but what we are framing it in is Jamaica's competitive advantage.
No, but
its
to your
products
point,
and services to be competitive in any of these global markets. And therefore our what you call it, research committee at the beginning of the business development, our intellectual property should have been as high on the list. You understand what I'm saying, in terms of trade agreements?
I understand what you're saying. I'm just adding to what you're saying.
No,
right?
Yeah, I agree.
How much we are way behind.
Yes.
Right? We are way behind the 8 ball, because a lot of what we're talking about, right, is basically what's being done to us, and being done to us in a so-called nice way, nicely explained and all of that. But it don't mean crap.
I want to find out because I'm just trying to understand the industry makeup in terms of the licensed players in the Jamaican space. What who are the majority that make up that space? Is it the 1 acre grower, the 5 acre grower, the 10, 20 acre? What is that makeup like?
Based on the statistics coming out of the CLA, the majority are one acre and above and 2 acres, but the 2 acres and is not. And don't look at it though by acreage, because what has happened is that you have it's like testing the waters. So the persons with the resources, because remember you have to fence an acre and put up camera all around. So persons with the resources who can have entered, they are not necessarily your small traditional farmers. These are persons who would have been established business persons who can afford to, and in some cases former commissioners and persons who would have been in former life burning these crops. So you, what I want is, so don't look at it as, all right, these are small farmers, they are in 1 acre. Persons have been testing to see how far. Now, what has happened, I told you, when the industry started, Canadians, US persons came in, but not having this sales materialized as they would, and having still getting the competition from the gray market, from the small farmers, that those persons have literally pulled out. And so you are finding now 1 and 2 persons who can maintain themselves staying in the market space. So while there are a lot of them are 1 acre, they are still 1 acre with certain kind of strictures and certain characteristics that you will have to take note of.
The other thing too that's laughable is that Jamaica seems to have an ability or a law that allows for the growing of psychedelic mushrooms. So all of a sudden, the psychedelic mushroom people are buying out the existing Ganja company infrastructure.
Let me pause
Right?
there, Sister Maxine. There is no law. What happened with the psychedelic mushroom is that it wasn't being, it came in the space, it wasn't being regulated or anything, and it caught on. It is now, so what you find in a lot of dispensaries, you have the psychedelic mushroom. And so now the authorities are in a panic because there is no, oh my God, we have to regulate this. So the regulations are now being thought about and crafted. So I speak from sitting at the, I must declare, I also sit on the National Council of Drug Abuse. So I actually hear these conversations with people telling you, oh my God, we have to stop this because our young people are now getting, so it's now realizing that,
don't be surprised if they come with new things too, like toad venom and all kinds of things.
Exactly. So
right.
There's no regulation about it. There's nothing. It's not us now realizing that, oh, it's a thing that persons are now, Sister Maxine, coming to say, oh, this needs to be regulated. So which is why you have the mushrooms and the chocolates being sold in the dispensaries and by cannabis growers who have decided that cannabis is not, it's not going where we thought it would be. So they are now diversifying, so to speak, their product line.
But do you recognize, Vicky, that the largest cannabis company, which I would say are the most successful one, Kaya, has been bought out by a mushroom company?
Yes, most
Okay.
most of them. Yes.
With
So the
everything
poly,
that's going on, what can the government do to enhance the industry? Is it?
Get out of the way.
No, I didn't hear that.
You asked me what can the government
Basically,
do?
Herb, I think what Maxine means, which I'm in total agreement with, is that the government is more part of the problem, not part of the solution.
All right. So one of the things that I've heard them doing, and I don't know, I'm watching this to see if it's political because we're in the political climate why the argument is made like that. But this, and Maxine, we would have spoken about this some time ago, is to say that if we're really building an industry, we cannot build this industry under the Dangerous Drugs Act. It has to be pulled out. And just like, oh, you have, I think somebody mentioned coconut, ackee. We have a coffee industry board and regulations. We have to pull it out of the Dangerous Drugs Act and treat it as a real industry that we want to build. We have to give it the same amount of facility in terms of agricultural extension that we would give any other crop. And we have to not treat it as a drug crop. Do we have the willpower to do so? I am not certain because one minister is on one and is saying she's going to do that and view it as culture and pull it out and ask for and lobby for the Cannabis Industry Act. While I'm hearing another minister in the same administration saying, oh, but we have the international laws that we signed to and we have to be careful of the treaty. So you're hearing two different stories and you don't know where. So in order to facilitate it, there needs to be meaningful conversation and really meaningful growth. Additionally, there has to be a recognition of the local industry. We keep talking about export. And I often say to persons, Aki is popular abroad, red stripe is popular abroad, breadfruit is popular abroad, all because of the local footprint that they have. If Jamaican people never love and talk about Aki and deal with Aki and red stripe, it would not have a brand value in the world. And so that is what cannabis have. But we don't treat it as such and we don't build a local industry.
But in 2018, when I was down on the island, I spent March and then again November, and you had some Americans visiting, and they had invested into, I believe it's the Walker Wood
Jerk sauce.
right.
sauce factory, and there were modifications being done to the factory to produce marijuana lace type products. Whatever happened to that, and is that gotten out in the market?
It has not because we do not allow edibles, and walkers would fall within the edibles arena.
Well, worse than
Locally,
that. Let me tell you, worse than that. When this ganja thing start, this industrial conversation, I was shocked when it was being presented within the nutraceutical platform, because the nutraceutical platform as an industry, which is another billion-dollar industry, had been hampered for so many decades apparently to be for Jamaican normal herbs, not ganja, just our normal medicinal herbs, to be invested in to enter that market. So the nutraceutical market actually was looking at the ganja as a spark to potentially now get this industry off the ground, which is, like I said, I think Jamaica has some of the most the highest variety of medicinal plants, right? So when I'm there thinking to myself, say, boy, these people that are in charge of industry and commerce and governance, you understand? They really are, if they have done this to the medicinal herbs, what are they going to do to the ganja? You understand what I'm saying?
But the
So,
biggest sign of failure for this, how many of us here remember? You mentioned being here in 2018. You remember Eden Garden and Dr. Henry Lowe? That company has folded under. That's the biggest sign. And he was one of the Jamaicans that was invested in ganja and products and other herbs and spices. And he folded under.
He came here to Washington in 2018, and he was looking at a contract with Howard University to use the ganja. He was claiming 13 cures for cancer. And when he showed up here, we entertained him at our June Caribbean American Month affair. And I was talking to him about, and he was pretty confident that Howard would have accepted the research, and he would have had successful marketing. But whatever happened.
It's just a matter of time that we won't be here. Oh yes. So therefore,
I think the thing too, is that in the medicinal market and the pharmaceutical, to get a product, a patent for this is different from nutraceuticals like lotions and these type of rubs for pain and so forth. But for the pharmaceutical, it takes between 15 to sometimes 20 years to get, that final patent to enter. But the thing I want to make clear, the recreational market globally, right, is 2 or 3 times larger than the medicinal and our pharmaceutical, right? So the reality is that regardless of this medicinal framework, we are a recreational country majoritively, right? And so our business would definitively, yes, speak to medicinal as value added, but the base of your industry is going to be recreational. So because recreational has not been legalized because of our transshipment issues and potentially other issues that political and who owns what, right? That is why we are mostly hampered, because our $11 billion recreational market cannot be absorbed by the medicinal, which is legal and everything, but its framework is of a different kind. And trust me, the medicinal market, when you look in California, Canada, and you look at what percentage of profit is being made in these industries, it is from the recreational. You understand? So,
but here's the thing with that, Maxine, right? Again, that's another thing. Key point you raise, because that's another thing again where, with all of what they're talking about, it's been happening. Most people come to Jamaica for smoke some weed.
But most of the medicinal dispensaries are quasi-recreational. They're not making any money from no medicinal product. They put some
because they're not going into the dispensary to get them weed. Them just want some weed, wherever it come from.
Go
ahead.
It is the same everywhere. It's like this medicinal label is just a means, probably, of keeping out some people on the international scene, because here in Toronto, on every corner, there is a so-called medicinal
A dispensary.
marijuana. Yeah, and it's all recreational people, and nobody has any
Yeah.
That is
medicinal
why
need.
that is why I laugh after the sacramental.
You
You
know,
understand what I'm saying? Because they say the sacramental you can't sell, you have to exchange it and all kind of things. And I'm saying, well, give the Rastafari the medicinal licenses for them to open their dispensaries and do what like everybody else is doing.
But Maxine, you're
You
supposed to
understand?
can collect a contribution to the sacramental.
No, what I'm saying, when the Catholic them and sell them sacramental wine under prohibition, they were the only ones who could sell.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So the Rastafari representation that we've made, you have differences of opinions within the Rastafari. You understand? Because there are those who seem to think that Jamaica, you know, the obstacles that we have identified, that somehow, you understand, it's gonna bow to them. But
let
I'm
me
telling you,
let me bring up another thing to Maxine, which is something very important and for us to consider, right? And especially because as we all know, right, with ganja, it came out of India first, right, in terms of coming to Jamaica. And the Indian medicinal industry, right, is mostly under their medicinal modality, which they refer to as Ayurvedic. Right?
Ayurvedic.
Yeah, they have a lot of herbs which is not as popularly known, right, in various parts of the world and so on, right? And of course, in order for them, they claim a lot of medicinal value to them, right? And despite them not being approved, right, because they have not come under research from the various universities and gotten their approval, right? They still find ways to import these herbs into the US legitimately and sell them legitimately in regular stores legitimately, right? The same thing could be done with the weed.
So that now brings, Patrick, another conversation that has been happening on the ground here. The naturopathic, nutraceutical medicine and medical practitioners, because they too have said, all right, I'm a naturopath. I use different herbs for my treating my patients and so on. And as you said, like the Indians who are able to export their herbs is legitimately, that's a legitimate claim. The challenge that we have within not just Jamaica, but the Caribbean and to a lot of extent to Latin America, because we have a grouping of us looking at this, is that we in this part of the world have not recognized those persons. So you have persons like Errol Grant and Basil who are practitioners who are because they are telling you, show us clinical trials. They need to show clinical trials and reports on their patient care and all of that. Now, we are coming up on a culture, as you said, like the Indians, who are your herbs and spices. You get a headache, there's a bush, there's fever grass, there's medina, there's so many herbs that we would use traditionally, and these are legitimate herbs, but we have not recognized that. So that is part of the tension that comes across also with the ganja, because
and that goes to the point, Maxine's point, in terms of the government standing in the way. They're being part of the problem rather than being part of the solution, because these are the things that they need to work on. These are the things that they need to pull out.
I think part of the problem too that we're probably not touching on is that the way international capitalism work is that it tries to strip all of these cultural and all these things that we're talking about. International capitalism see a product as a product that can be sold in the marketplace. And so they try to strip it of the cultural significance and all of those things. And if we have a government that is compliant and we have a ministry of culture that is not pushing back on these perspectives that capitalism is pushing in the marketplace when it comes to ganja, the situation will never change. If we,
Precisely.
just like how they can push tourism, right? And push backside and push all these other things that them have interest in, that them can sold as any product on a shelf. I mean, if they are interested and see the real significance in terms of earnings and benefit to the country of the ganja market, I mean, they would push back on these capitalist outlook that is trying to take away the cultural and the religious and all those kind of significance that is part of the branding of what we have in the marketplace, as Maxine often allude to, that these people try to remove the Jamaican branding, right, and the cultural branding and all of these things. They'll only emphasize these things only if they think it will benefit them to have a foothold in the marketplace, right? And right now, they believe that they can push their own products in their own countries, right? And minimize the Jamaican brand in terms of marijuana. And I don't see that we have a strong lobby in coming from Jamaica, to push back at these forces.
In fact, it is actually, it's not even to push back against them, because a lot of our influence is because of people that like what we offer. And you spoke about Grace Kennedy. When I'm in New York at the present, and when I go into the supermarket and see the Grace Kennedy products, they're coming from China, or they're coming from Philippines, or but they're carrying the Grace Kennedy brand. That ought to show you that the brand is more valuable than the product, especially in globalization, where products are going to come from anywhere that is suitable, but the consumer wants the brand. You understand? And you try to make the products coming from anywhere seem like your product, meaning it has, like Starbucks. Wherever you go in the world and you go to a Starbucks or a Kentucky Chicken or whatever, you do get the essence. I don't say that they ship everything from one place, but you're able to manage your value, and Kentucky or whatever these are still owned by the originators. You understand what I'm saying? But that type of thinking.
But what's happening now, Maxine, is that you have, it seems like in the ganja industry, what you have is that there are people abroad who recognize the value of the Jamaican brand, but they realize that because of either government inaction or the industry not being developed enough, they want to use the brand in their countries for their own benefit. And then the Jamaican industry gets no benefit from it. Because as someone mentioned, like in California, they would have a Bob Marley picture attached to something, or some Jamaican Rastafari colors attached to something they have over there, to their brand, and selling it and people recognize it and get attached to it with the sentiments that it is some connection to Jamaica. And they realize that there's a loophole either in how the Jamaicans are defending their brand, right, in the international space, and they can get away with it. Unlike the situation with the Grace Kennedy that you would see in the Toronto marketplace, and they're getting benefit from it.
But
Exactly.
again, the other point is that branding is not an obstacle. Branding is something you build. So anybody can build a brand, right? As long as they do it right in a way that allows the brand to really become, regularly known. I mean, Grace Kennedy wasn't always where it was. I remember the days, back in my earlier days when Grace Kennedy was just trying to get a foothold, right, the American market, right?
And it's the Jamaicans.
Yeah,
Remember, it's
yeah.
we
I
who
mean,
live abroad,
as far as I know, Grace Kennedy is still Jamaican,
No,
right?
I'm just saying we are the ones who popularize
Yes,
the
exactly,
Jamaican,
Mike.
exactly.
we
Because
are the advertising.
it could
Mike.
only be sold. It could only be sold in the little Jamaican the little store them, the little corner store them, what was selling right goods from Jamaica and all of that,
But
Right.
right?
Because
here,
when you
here,
go into the supermarkets now, you have specialized products from Latin America.
yeah,
You have coexisting with the American brands. You understand? Based on the demographics surrounding the areas where these goods and products are being sold. But the point is that we are, we are so behind in our intellectual property understanding, because we would know that, for example, we had the same issue with Jamaican ginger. You
Yes,
understand what I'm saying?
yes,
The same
but
exact issue,
yes. But
here's the
right?
obstacle.
Hmm?
Here's the
but I want to
obstacle.
tell you something too. There's something else which I would really like to say, but I don't want to say it on here. In terms of how you could get that into the U.S. market legitimately.
Can I say
Yes,
something?
probably that's what I
Can I
want.
say
What
something?
I
Can
want
I
to
say
say is
something?
probably what you're touching on, Patrick. Just, let me finish this, Mikey, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Um,
ahead.
the obstacle, as I heard Vicky was saying, is that you can't export the edibles and so forth. So most of our products that got known in the international space, like in the Canada and in the US, was that the Jamaicans could take these products into the diaspora. When you have a situation where the Jamaican coming on vacation and going back home can't take the ganja product from
But they
Jamaica
used to, they
into
have
the
done it. That's why we're famous for it.
That's why we're so
yes,
rich,
but
millions.
yeah. But in the
Yeah,
new
there's
dispensation now, right? That is like gonna be a strike against the ganja industry
yeah,
that is just developing. It's
yeah,
not like we doing this with things that were established and it wasn't
Can
so
I say some?
detrimental.
Can I say something? I listened to the conversation, and it's very sad. Honestly, it's very sad because Babylon always find a way to divide and rule us. And I think
that's their nature.
that is at the root of this problem, the ganja thing, because even the Rastafari community, there's not a unified stand when it comes to this product. And,
Yes.
and in addition to that, you have folks like Babsy Grange who's determined to exercise control over this industry. I read a thing from her last week where she's making move to amend the present regulations. You know how that go. But I really think that part of the problem in terms of the ganja industry, I find the leaders them focus on the medicinal ganja, but nobody not talk about clothes and other
Merchandise.
industry. Yeah, that we can develop at Jamaica, because when you go California, you see ganja fabric, pants, all sort of thing. Why can't we focus on the industry rather than talking about medicinal? Because people talk about work. People need work, jobs.
Mhm.
Where can we
We
mobilize the resource to start a clothes making factory in Clarendon? Another thing with
Mhm.
this campaign, I really think it is a bit short-sighted for us who are advocating in this regard short-sighted in the sense that we need to recognize the role of the Indian community. That has to be an important part of the discussion around ganja in Jamaica. You know, and how can we leverage that by going to the Indian community overseas and say, listen, based on the historical ties, cultural and what have you, how can we partnership and develop this thing? Because the Indians introduced ganja into Jamaica.
Yeah.
We have that foundation.
Well,
why not use
well,
it and leverage? Yeah, go ahead.
now I was about to say we had brought up Thailand, and because of the Indian influence, Thailand also calls its ganja ganja. They're not taking away our name ganja. Their natural name for it, because of the Indian influence, you know, because the Indian influence wasn't just in Jamaica, it was
No,
in
wherever
South
slave
Africa.
trade
It's
exists.
huge.
Yep.
Wherever they went, you know, even though we
British
are
slavery, wherever.
realizing that Africa, especially certain countries, had the same 1,000 years relationship
Association, yeah.
with the herb, but in slavery, based on the conditions of slavery, it could not be carried over. So the reason the Indians have this influence is they came in as indentured servants, right?
Yes.
And
Same
so
thing in Jamaica.
in indentureship, you carried, you know,
Yeah.
you were able to carry more aspects of your culture than you did under slavery. So we still have a what do you call it? Especially because we have a bilateral agreement with South Africa, who, you know, have almost the same historical conditions in relation to the ganja as we do, and we really dropped the ball again with that, because South Africa and Jamaica should be twinned in all aspects, in lobbying, but more so in trade. And South Africa is huge in the hemp market. As you mentioned, clothing, that's why I'm bringing it up. And we actually did under the bilateral, we did a trade agreement, because this company that I'm associated with, Rasta Ganja Global, is actually also registered in South Africa, with the idea that Jamaica and South Africa would have been, you know, partners in trading a lot of the nutraceuticals. We'd be trading around the hemp industry, because, you know, Jamaica still has a small area, you know, in terms of potential acreage. You understand? But you could have partnered. I mean, the platform is there for us to partner with South Africa and even other major countries like Ghana. Ghana has another, you know, deep ganja cultural market as well. You understand?
I listen
So,
to you, Maxine, but I'm constantly reminded of the fact that the people who suffer because of this plant, in no way they stand to benefit. The people who persecute, you
well,
know,
well,
they, they are the ones
as
who
you
suffer.
say that, listen,
Here's a thing to
listen. In
Michael.
America, just one thing before you go on, Patrick. In America, it is because of the African American lobby and the power financially of their artists like Jay-Z, etc. In here, there are laws attached to the developing industry in America that says there has to be reparation given in terms of licenses and in terms of investment into these communities to make them be more compliant.
That now go on
And
at Jamaica. Babs, now go
no,
alone.
I'm just telling you that there's a
Okay.
recognition for reparation in relation to how, you know, people of color have been abused over the process. So it's still happening here. In America, the industry is dominated by white capitalists. You understand?
I know, I know, I
Ownership.
know,
But
I
you
But
know,
know.
there's
initially, I should state though, initially, when the law was made, it was claimed that part of the requirement was that 51% of the licensee, any company or so, must be locally owned. Um, has that
but
has that happened and has that been maintained? The
no,
juries is
no, because immediately they gave another law that if you were a foreigner and you were in Jamaica for 3 years
resident
or
for two
something like that,
for 4
you
years.
could
If you are
qualify.
ordinary resident for I think 4 years. So what you found that a number of Canadians stayed here for 4 years. They just went up, visited their family for about a month and came back and stayed here and claimed to be resident, ordinary resident in Jamaica.
Are we telling the Jamaican people about this? Where's the news about them? This sort of behavior. You see, the point I'm getting at is that for this thing for the industry to get off the ground, it's going to take massive mobilization,
Yes.
sensitization. You have to bring the Jamaican people on board. And where the things set up right now, uptown people are them around shit in Jamaica when it comes to the industry.
Right. So one of the things I'm sorry Rupert isn't here today. But one of the objectives or one of the outcomes that we'd like to see happen is to engage our diaspora. You understand? As educate them and mobilize the diaspora and friends of Jamaica. You understand? On these
Education or investment.
well,
Because
that's what I'm saying.
I see that
Educate to give for them to give to fund the because what I've seen in Jamaica is our advocacy. We're passionate, but there's no economy to support the passion. You understand?
so
We have a
how you
Ganja
do
Growers
the
and
so
Producers
how you do the
Association.
legal thing? How you do the legal thing now? A man up here is a smuggler and he want to get him money at Jamaica. Him start something down, them can send down him money in terms of the
Um,
industry. Because those are questions people gonna ask, about how them
no. What I'm
laundering money
saying,
and
you
all
have
sort.
no. I'm not talking, and then I'm not talking about the smugglers. I'm
Okay.
talking about the ordinary, passionate Jamaicans like yourselves. I don't think anybody here is a smuggler, but
Well,
but
nobody walks around with a sign saying I'm a smuggler. So let's
No,
not
I'm
even
just
go
throwing.
there.
Listen,
Right?
not
listen.
only not only that.
But here's the
But
thing.
you understand what I'm saying, though?
I
Yeah,
do,
Are you
but
but
getting the
I,
drift?
here's the thing about
Like
it.
TJ
Here's
drift.
the thing about it. Right? There's a tendency, and I'll just put it that way, right? Because it is more than just a tendency. It is actually what has become our legacy, right? Our legacy, which sometimes people tend to think that it is us naturally, but it's not us naturally. It's really the legacy we carry. We carry a legacy from colonialism, right? As I said earlier on, where we walk behind the master, right? Where we think that the
not
things
all of us.
to
Not
do
all
to
of
do
us.
no, hold on, just hear me out. To do something right means that we have to listen to him. To be educated means that the education comes from him. To move along, to be independent means that he must be the one giving us our constitution, right? That's not how it is. That's not how it is, right? It's not supposed to be that way,
Well,
right?
well,
We
the
are supposed
people,
to determine what we need to do in our best interest, right?
right? So you have to organize and
It is about
constitute yourself.
self-determination, right? And
Hmm.
for that matter, what it means is that if we're looking at building an industry, then we have to look at it creatively. How do we go about building an industry creatively, right? What are the obstacles, right? How do we overcome these obstacles, right? How do we work through, you know, the necessary requirements, right? These are the things that we have to look at. We have to look at it and look at it in a pragmatic way, right? This it's not something which we just up and do, or something which we do simply because we're looking for support from one place or another, right? It is something which we have to come together, right, and do in a constructive way, right?
So
Because
what you
what has
propose?
been happening is, and Michael speak to
That's a
that point,
question. That's a
right?
question.
Michael mentioned the point about Babsy Grange, right? I mean, I'm actually calling him, so I can call the name, right? He mentioned about Babsy Grange standing in the way, right? And of course, we talked about earlier, right, how much the government is more part of the problem than they are part of the solution, right? Which is primarily wrong from the jump, right? Because we cannot, there's certain things that we'll not be able to do if the government continue to be an obstacle,
Yeah,
right?
but Patrick, I think I agree that the government is an obstacle, right? But I think
I want to say, I
part,
want to qualify
part of
that
the
rather than
part
say the
of the
government.
reason part of the reason why I think the government is not moving is because the groundswell for put fire under the government, I don't think it is there. I mean, before the the ganja, not legalization, but before,
Decriminalization.
yes, before that, what happened? You had a lot of Rastaman saying all kind of things. You had a lot of ganja smokers saying all kind of things. Now that this thing is in train and the ganja industry is kind of is developing, where are those voices? Where are the voices who used to call for legalization of ganja and this big talk and big whatever? We
Well,
need all of those voices. We can't just let the government off of the hook, right? The fact is, Patrick raised the thing about the same thing happened with hockey and all of those things. Yes, but the government stepped in and there was dialogue between the American government and the Jamaican government and the scientific community and so forth. We need that kind of lobby. The government owe it to the Jamaican people who are involved in the industry for that kind of lobby. The industry players should not be there on their own because this is a recipe for the international community to ignore them, right? Because if they know that you have a government that is not supporting your protests, they have this tendency to ignore you, right? Put you in a little corner, in a little box, and say, well, we can do this and do that. While on the other hand,
But I think we're going past that stage. I think we're going to. It is already established that certain things are going to happen. You know, you can have certain amount of ganja, you can have certain amount of this and what have you. You have certain things already in place. The problem, which I think the advocates face, is how to unite the supporters behind this initiative. And I'm saying that the supporters allow themselves to be manipulated by folks like elements like Babsy Grange and others, while they want to keep the Rastafari community divided. Because they know if the Rastafari community is allowed to be united, then you know this industry is going to take off. Look, Babsy Grange post some pictures today on Facebook about a exhibition or a conference, and it's like 73 photographs. And when you go through it, one, I do not see Vicky face as an advocate of the industry. I do not see Maxine. What I see is they have one elder Rastaman playing drums and he's selling some stuff. And then you have a bunch of business people, some of them with dreadlocks and what have you. And that is what is happening. Just find someone on a token, put it up front, and stamp it and say, yes, we're doing something good. You know, Eddie Seaga used to do the very same thing in West Kingston. Somebody dead, you just organize a group of people to just come and march behind a drum, and them are that showing solidarity with the dead, and them will bury the dead down at Maypen. The advocates have to find a way that unite their supporters for this industry to take off. Because a lot of fighting. Some people don't want to talk to Maxine, some people don't want to talk to Vicky, some people say it's go this way, go that way, and this way, go on. You know, it's messy, man. I know some players involved, man. It's messy. People complaining that it takes too much out of them to bring man and man together, man and sister together, to agree to a plan. And why that happen? The Canadian just a walk come right in. That's how I go on.
I don't see how there's such a difficulty when the music, there seems to be,
bro.
The music, the music.
Bro,
give me a chance, Mikey. The music and the music and the herb has gone along together for so long.
Bridget.
Why is it? It seems like the herb is on one side and the music is going along on another side. Where's the unity between? Where's the unity between where's the partnership between the music and the herb? You know, in the Mali time, in the Whalers time, and so forth. Where's that unity for pushing hard against the status quo?
Let me answer you by saying this. In the 1970s, a Virgin by the name of Nicky Thomas. Patrick, you probably know him, used to live on Railroad. He meet the British chart. Nicky Thomas with Rainy Night in Georgia. And after he hit the British chart, Virgin and a lot of British labels start coming to Waterhouse, come sign people, left, right, and center. Overnight, every man grew dreadlocks.
Because Ghana.
Yeah, every man grew dreadlocks because Virgin tell them say that is the look that they want. You understand me?
Ghana had that same impact globally.
You understand me? So it's not say the music and the herb not tied together, but you don't have a unity behind that. None of them. And that is what is missing.
Well, I can tell you that the music is also owned by the capitalists. Yes,
Okay.
I can sing about whatever, but at the level of trade and commerce and distribution,
them control it.
The amount they control it. So
same thing.
My mind came to remittances, which again I'm here on a diaspora platform. So I am mindful, having been in Jamaica on the ground, you know, and seeing, you know, the willingness of the ones in Jamaica to advocate, but they have no resources.
Exactly.
So when you ask about the Rastafari, for example, I spent years in an organizational platform amongst a poor community, that if you call a meeting, you better be prepared to also give the bus fare to come to the meeting, the food, the this, the that, right? So I saw where this whole disunity, divide, and all of that, the greatest factor was poverty, right? And even on the political level, any mass meeting is organized. There's resources, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm mindful that ones want to do the right thing, but your faith and your commitment is highly challenged. You can have a meeting, everything is good, everything is understood. Once you leave the meeting, sometimes people don't even have credit to call. Sometimes, you know, COVID helped us a lot because it brought forward this platform,
Maxine,
of Zoom and so on. I'm just giving you.
I'm asking you, how can we in the diaspora help to strengthen this movement? That's a question. What role can we play?
I think we need to develop a fund along the idea of remittance, because the act of remitting is such a major economic reality for not just for Jamaicans, but for a lot of countries. It's the people in the diaspora who are upholding, you understand, the basic rights of their families and communities. Well, I'm speaking of Jamaica. You understand? So, it's just a matter of developing the proper narrative, both not just even for an advocacy, but even a fund that would eventually be an investment fund into the proper principles that should, govern the industry. Because even if Vicky and I have ideas, we need lawyers
Yeah.
at the level of the government and policy to carry these ideas forward and defend them, that they
And
make
let
it
me also
onto the
add to
paper.
that. Let me also add to what Maxine is saying, because you asked a very good question. How can we? One of the things that we have been doing as advocates is to be engaged into conversations and debates that happen, not just at the local level, but at the regional and international level. So, for example, there is now, and Maxine mentioned Uruguay earlier, but there is also Bolivia and other countries who are challenging the UN conventions as it relates to cultural use of plants that they view as job plants and crops. And they've challenged it on the fact that, for example, Bolivia came out of the convention and as it relates to coca plant because of their cultural use and their traditional persons using it. And we have said, but it's a similar for us in terms of ganja and the plant and our Rastafari community, Maroon community, and other Indian communities, and so on. But to get to some of these conversations and go into some of these debates, we have to depend on funding, Patrick, from Mr. Mann, from the guys in Europe. So again, you want to go to these conversations. If you're not at the table, you're on the table as dinner. So we want to be at the table, but to be at the table, it costs. So for example, we were able to have some funding representations from St. Catherine and from a compound in St. Elizabeth at a regional debate looking at the convention that deals with economic, social, and cultural rights, under which we have said, listen, you are telling us about INCB and convention signed for about the jobs, but you're not looking at the conventions that you would have signed about our cultural rights and our rights to recognize certain standing. And so having funding to go to these conversations and having funding to hold press conference, because you'd be surprised. Media don't go nowhere where they don't feel that it is valuable and it's worth their while. And so some of the strengths that and support from the diaspora, as Maxine says, is to help us to get to these tables, help us to get to these conventions, help us to have these conversations, and help us to find the legal help to challenge when our rights are being trampled on, and to challenge these regulations that they come. So, for example, St. Kitts and the Nevis had a change to their cannabis law because the Rastaman there challenged the constitutionality of him having the ability to use ganja. And so that was how St. Kitts law is being amended. Now, do we
So,
have resources here?
and that's the other argument about Rastafari unity and so forth, which I, just based on what Vicky just said. Similarly, the law in South Africa was changed by a Rastafari lawyer who challenged the constitution. So it don't need no unity or no bring 50 million people together or whatever. From you have a case on behalf of your cultural right, and you carry that to the Supreme Court. You understand? That is something that they have been blocking the Rastafari in Jamaica from challenging the law, thinking that, oh, we have to go get something from the old mansions and get. You only have to have the facts and you bring it before the court as an individual. You understand? And it is verified. The law is changed. It totally changed the laws in South Africa. One Rastafari lawyer went to
So
change
why
it.
hasn't this happened in Jamaica? What is preventing this from happening?
Well, I think we haven't
You
had.
have a lot of Rasta lawyers here. You have Miguel Lorne, you have Isaac Buchanan, you have a lot of Rasta lawyers down there.
They come with fees, you know. These lawyers come with fees.
Remember,
No,
they
no,
did move for this bar, Miguel, you know.
Yeah, there's a.
No, he's practicing again. He's now
He's
back.
practicing again.
Yeah, he has back his license.
Yeah,
Okay.
but let us get to something that Herb raised. Herb, you said something about the diaspora. You were saying something. To continue what Maxine is saying.
Muted. He's muted.
Herb.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. I posted something here that the Jamaican and Caribbean people can help develop the market, right? By investing in emerging legal medicinal cannabis markets in the region, especially in Jamaica. It also says Jamaica has positioned itself at the forefront of cannabis law reform in the developing world. Foreign investment can provide
What are you reading from?
capital.
What are you reading from, Herb?
Something like that I produced. It's in look in the private chat. Everybody
Yes.
can see
No, I can't see the chat.
the private chat. It should be to your down
Oh,
to
when
your
you're
lower
in
left.
full. That's why I didn't see it.
Yeah, but it's
Okay,
still
okay. I
down
was
low,
in
but
full
you see it.
screen mode. That's why I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay.
I'm seeing it now.
You see, because you need
Yeah, go ahead.
everything I'm hearing is like we're not fully or properly organized, right? We don't have links to each other. We're not talking to each other about what our needs are. For instance, we're talking to Jamaica, and Jamaica talking back to us about fighting corruption, and we're organizing around that, and we're getting the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation in position to do that. But we also have other things we can do, which would be similar to what we're talking about here, is organizing around getting the foreign investment provided to get the capital, technical knowledge, and quality assurance. Everything that they throw at you, all the regulations they're throwing out there saying, oh, you got to meet this standard and that standard. It's all hurdles. And if you have the money, you can get over the hurdles. That's the bottom line, right? But there are people in the diaspora that have lots of money. Some that made the money off the old-time ganja trade, right? Maybe it's time to talk to those people as well and say, hey, let's bring everything up to a modernized state to where your kids can enjoy your money. Because if they say your money is dirty and they don't want you involved, then invest it in your kids at least, and then let's get
I think
a different.
the question Vicky and Maxine is asking is, what's the first step?
The
I think
first
that is the
step
question they're asking you, Herb. We
to,
hear that.
to
So
talk.
what's the next step? What's the next step?
All right, so you have the
To
different
implement what you're
Jamaican
suggesting.
look. The Northeast Diaspora is on Tuesday night. They're having a conference, and they're talking about good governance. If you want to appear on that, let me know, and I'll introduce it to Michelle this evening, because good governance also means what are you doing about the diaspora and the needs of the diaspora, or what can the diaspora do for the people of Jamaica, right? This is where you the kind of forum you want to introduce that.
Right.
But
Also, go ahead.
but give her a specific
Vicky,
plan, something that needs to happen.
Well, what I would add is that if you recognize that, for example, in New York, we are entering a legalized market here, you know,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
beginning to. So if you recognize that a lot of the Jamaican products are here, patty, jerk, you understand, that have developed businesses from the diaspora base, you'd also recognize that you should be in the diaspora in terms of assisting, also be framing a Jamaica-based entity. You understand what I'm saying? That will
Right.
match and or positively appropriate, because you're going to be giving back, you understand, to the source. So
Yep.
if you have a Jamaica-based Ganja cultural company arising out of New York or the markets that it has legalized, I see, for example, Jacana, which is a Jamaican-based company, in a promotion this week here, they're not promoting Ganja, but they're promoting herb-based wellness products and services, therefore getting the Jacana brand amongst the people, you understand? And potentially opening a Jacana
Yep.
store that then upon, you understand?
Okay.
Yep. I got
Maxine,
you.
Maxine, what about you trying to get some of that information to us?
Yes, well, I've been adopted, you know. Michael, don't tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, I still want the information. I hear you just announced, but I wasn't even expecting it, so I couldn't write anything down or whatever. So,
I want to further on that, you know. I think Vicky and
You go ahead, adopt
Herb
Vicky too.
and Maxine should link up, because no, seriously, you know, we have to resist, you know, and the way to resist is having access to information. Or you have some connection in terms of getting them to
yeah,
the
I
forum.
definitely going to talk to you further upon that, in terms of that meeting coming up.
Yeah,
But
if you can get them
yeah,
to
Yeah,
make a
yeah. Well, yeah.
presentation, that would be good.
We can have a discussion over.
Yeah, because I agree with Maxine, the
but
diaspora has a role to
that
I'm
play.
sending
that
out
way you
stuff
just
right now.
mentioned, though,
So
Maxine, I definitely would have liked if get me some information on that. So I guess I can put put my information in the chat that you can
Yes,
email it to me or something.
yes.
And Vicky, you should give your information to her, because you can get you
Yeah.
on that thing, because that's the way it have to be done, you know. You know, one cocoa, you know. Because I
full
tell you,
basket. Yeah.
you see, in Jamaica around this industry, there's two individuals that you have to recognize, right? The politics of what you're doing. First, Babs Grange, another person who you have to recognize in this hierarchy of crooks is Barbara Anna Blake. She, she's you know, and those folks, you know, they're not going to just roll over and play dead. This is something that they're very passionate about, and they see money, you know, and they're going to do everything to stifle that which they can control. That's my little bit. I want anybody have anything to say, because it's now 2 hours we've been at this.
I think we've got,
Vicky,
you know, you want closing remarks?
well, let me hear from you. Your
Yeah, my
closing remarks.
information is in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, we go around the room, around the table, the closing remarks. Start with Patrick.
Well, I think this was a good discussion, and there's a lot of information coming out of this, and I see this as a positive move for really start making some inroads as to how we can really resolve this whole thing and really get on a more productive footing. But definitely this was a very good discussion in my view.
Last.
Yeah, man. I want to say I appreciate the presence of Vicky. Now and I won't talk about Maxine. She's one of us now. So
She's a doctor.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I mean, it is important. I think the industry, is important to Jamaica, and it is important that we try and defend the cultural brand that this industry, carries with it, and try to ensure that it's not taken over, by the foreign interventionists, and operate like some kind of foreign entity. It is important that the Jamaicans, right, have a big part to play in this industry and should benefit, from this industry. And so, I'd love to see, things get organized. I'd love to see some more unity amongst the industry players, and I'd love to see the government take a more proactive approach to defending the industry and the international scene, And I'd also love to see more outspokenness on the part of the players, trying to get more people involved, the music industry involved, the ordinary Rastafarians involved, the youths who smoke herb. There's a lot of players who can be involved in making this thing a movement to make it better.
Herb.
Somebody asking me if banks or other financial institutions are not accommodating ganja entrepreneurs. How does the money become legal? Not even the US have solved that.
Yes,
We haven't solved it either.
we haven't solved it, but you must recognize also, though, that merchandise surrounding the brands in the ganja industry globally sell more than the product itself. So just a way to say that your company, whilst you may not be able to bank the ganja sales, you can certainly bank the merchandising, right? So we have to, we have ways around
yeah.
certain
It's as long
industry.
as long as you're doing it as a legitimate business,
No,
right?
that's
You
what
have
I'm
a
saying.
problem.
Yes,
What I'm saying is, even here in the U.S., right? As
Yeah,
long
there
as
is problem.
you're doing a legitimate business, right? Because like I said, the feds haven't legalized it or anything like that, but they still collect taxes.
So
Right, but
what you're
we're just
saying,
saying
Pat,
we just have to think through ways
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. There
going
is a way
around
to do
it.
it. There's a way to do
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
so I hope they understand. Now, if you have a diversified organization that you're into different sales, then there's no way that they're going to be able to say, well, specifically, you didn't make this much money selling memorabilia, from Jamaica, from the crafts market or something like that. Um, there's got, because when you bank that money, you're saying it's come from your company. Now, if your company also indulge in ganja sales, um, and you're banking in various different financial entities, how can they challenge? That's the thing. I guess we'll have to ask my brother that question because he deals
Yeah.
a lot.
But
Because they,
one of the factors, the other day there was a lot of flack about the rise of the white reggae bands of California
yeah,
dominating the
reggae
Grammys
scene.
and the
Yeah.
reggae scene. Truth be told, it's the ganja industry of California that is behind that rise, because that is how the music and the ganja works culturally. It's the same thing that happened for Jamaica. So I'm just saying what I'm saying.
Let me ask you this: as far as all the high-rise buildings in Jamaica, when you pay cash to your construction workers and they build that high-rise building and it's completed,
Well,
they,
they're now focused on that industry because so many high rises have gone up since the factor. Some law, I don't know the exact, but all the Jamaicans that have their cash in America have to show something or move it.
It's money laundering. It's under the money laundering and
It's under money laundering. So now they're looking at the lawyers of Jamaica. I think they had something about
you
lawyers
have to
lending
declare
money.
where you and how source of funds and how the
Funds are
transactions and so
tran-
on. And the
right.
lawyers have to declare the clients.
and,
Those are
and
new regulations now coming in. But I heard like last 2 weeks that they're now focused on the construction industry, because if you're in Jamaica, every 2 blocks is a apartment building. I don't know where the water is going to come from to to deal with that, but
well,
10,
maybe they
Vicky,
have to talk to Ministry of Foreign Affairs because when the Chinese built that building, they built it, and the plumbing system was not functioning.
Jill, can you give you a closing? Vicky.
Yeah, let me thank you for having me. It was a very good discussion. I'd like to also say that it's good that this is a conversation that is happening in the diaspora. You ask what the diaspora can do. We can organize at that level and to pressure our policymakers, because the same policymakers, the same politicians come to the diaspora during the election time
Exactly.
to get funding. And so if it's a conversation that they realize is not only happening on the ground here, but is happening in the diaspora, and the diaspora is also pushing from that end to get a more justified and a more inclusive industry, it is something that I know they will pay attention to. And as Maxine says, help and supporting the lobbying, because lobbying without resources is very difficult, very challenging to stay at the table. And so we thank you for offering us a platform. Thank you for this platform, but having the conversation there and pushing the envelope from that end can also help us on this side of the fence as well.
Just a question to Vicky. Do you have a mechanism for the diaspora to help you?
no,
Does the
that's what we're going to
industry?
set up.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
When we
I,
start,
I,
when we started out, the topic was Jamaica ganja industry, who benefit. And from the discussion, it is clear that the Rastaman is not benefiting.
or the ordinary
Because
Jamaican.
ordinary
Not the
Jamaican
farmer.
not benefiting. You have some guys from overseas and their friends in high places who sort of dominate the industry. But I think the biggest challenge to the industry is the unity. if we can pull together the unity, the grassroots people coming together and demanding this industry, they will listen because someone is telling me that the prime minister owns a ganja company. He's one of the players in the industry. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah. So it's not that they don't want the industry, what they want to ensure is to make sure that they are the ones benefiting.
At all
You know,
times.
they are the ones benefiting, and it's something we should keep our eyes on, continuous the discussion of this issue and pay attention to it because our people suffer. Spend time at jail, policeman bust up head, all sort of thing over the good ganja, you know.
And you must realize that I didn't even think about it, but I thought about it because of this discussion, that we in the diaspora can also build industry for ourselves based on our culture. We just
Exactly.
need to, within the states that there's legalization, using our culture with a proviso that a percentage of what we do, that's how you can make a difference. A percentage of what you do using your culture, you give back to the root. You
True.
understand? Yeah, because where we can't export, we can have our companies. That's how I say cookies and these different brands do.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
open companies in the different states.
Yeah.
You understand? And promote themselves. So the Jamaican diaspora, not just to put a ganja company because you're Jamaican, but you do it in mind that you're using the culture in a way and the branding, and that your standards of products that you would generate here would also, give a percentage back through a trust mechanism or a trust fund to assist the market in Jamaica, because we have to fight them. We can't just be depending, understanding how the thing is set up to be exporting our culture from Jamaica. We have to be like
Well,
Grace
not only
Kennedy.
that, but the amounts of money that the diaspora has to send back to Jamaica, it would make more sense to help a local entity, a Rastas or others, who are willing to spread the wealth,
Yes.
to help them set up in Jamaica and spread that wealth around. You
Right.
wouldn't be
Because we
needing to bank any money or violate money laundering rules. You'd be
exactly.
helping other people in underserved communities. You'd be bringing them up to speed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And on that
Okay.
note, I want to thank you all for a lively discussion. I want to thank also the audience. We have now 134 listeners. Thank you all, and remember, like, share, and subscribe. The more you subscribe, the more popular our channel grow. And
Okay.
on that note, thank you everyone, brothers and sisters, and
God
we
bless.
meet again next Sunday. Can we confirm, Maxine, you will be with us?
Yes, I'm a co-host.
And Vicky,
What about Vicky? Vicky, you'll be with
Vicky,
us?
will you be here?
I'll pass through and visit.
Well, I think Rupert is gonna will manhandle her, woman handle her, and bring her forward. Let's tell Rupert.
Okay.
All right.